BXB. It's in the game!
In many ways, it's a real shame that Activision couldn't hold off one more year to put Call of Duty Modern Warfare in a bundle with Infinite Warfare. And that's what I'm looking at right now. And it's strange in a way that I would mention Modern Warfare right from the top, because I think it might sadly be one of the only reasons many people are picking this up. Well, half the amount of people that picked up Black Ops 3 anyway. So here I am reviewing Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. And first of all, let me just say, this year has been amazing for first-person shooter stories and campaigns. Truly a benchmark year. This will make it the fourth title this year that has a more than just noteworthy campaign with brilliant writing, creative set pieces, and great styles. I'm obviously talking about, it started off with Doom at the beginning of the year, and then just like a few weeks ago, and I've reviewed them both, Battlefield 1 had an amazing campaign, and Titanfall 2 had an amazing campaign as well. Both of those games I gave 5 stars. And actually, if I went back and reviewed Doom with our current review style and system of the stars, I'd also give that game 5 stars. Now, here we are looking at Infinite Warfare. Well, you can guess where this is probably going. I loved this story. This one, out of all of them, I found myself being the most emotionally invested in. Now, I am a sucker for military science fiction, especially when it's as well written as this. You're trotting all over the solar system, you're seeing amazing vistas, you're doing Call of Duty things in places you've never done Call of Duty things before. There's only so many places you can fight around the planet. And I think it was a smart move on Infinity Ward's part to take this to the solar system, to give us this science fiction story that, while it is science fiction, it's still a Call of Duty game. It's still very grounded. Basically, we're fighting for Earth. You're the good guys. The bad guys are these separatist dudes, these colony guys who are based on Mars, and they basically, for whatever reason, are incredibly militaristic and hate Earth, to the point where they launch an attack, and basically the whole game is about you trying to hold them off to protect Earth and to gain the upper hand. Now, you play as this hero whose name... I love this story. I was swept along by it. But don't ask me to give you any of the names. This is one of my patented reviews where I'm going to shoot from the hip, one take, few notes about my impressions, and that's it. That's how I review games. So don't ask me to tell you the guy's name off the top of my head, because frankly you probably won't remember it either when you're playing this game. But it won't change the fact that you are swept along in this amazing story, that you totally care about these characters. Actually, I've just remembered his name. It's Jack Reese, or Reyes, I think, depending on how it's pronounced. But it's the supporting characters that you're going to remember because of your interactions with them. Your plucky, fantastic co-pilot and wingman, Salt, or Salter. She's badass, she's great. You've got this awesome robot guy, Ethan, who fights with you through the trenches, and you really care about him. You've got this sort of gruff military marine sergeant who shows a heart of gold, and basically, it's in typical Call of Duty fashion. It's not a spoiler to say you're going to have these emotional connections made with these characters that are well written with great dialogue, and they're going to take them away from you. They're going to kill these people. That's what Call of Duty does, because that's how they manipulate you emotionally, and it works incredibly well. I'm not going to say obviously any more spoilers than that, but throughout this game, you've got these set pieces, the typical Call of Duty experiences, but the visuals aren't that great. The character models and the cutscenes are fantastic, but that's probably got a lot to do with the fact that Blur Studios is doing it. Like I said, the dialogue is fantastic. And there's an interesting sort of twist on the way the single-player campaign progresses. Once you get out from the early kind of missions and stuff and get off Earth, you're presented with a bunch of optional side missions with incentive to go and do them. However, these missions you can play in any order. I obviously have played them all, and then played all the story side of things as well. I really enjoyed these missions. They weren't like side missions maybe in a role-playing game which could be throwaway or like just cookie cutter. They all had a little story. They all had a reason to be there, an objective. They all felt unique, interesting, and engaging. I just wish they'd maybe lasted a little bit longer into the game. If anything, I was kind of surprised that they kind of stopped where they did. It felt like the game was coming to a close at an earlier point than it actually was. And I was glad for that, because the final part of the game, the big sort of finale, you go all over the solar system. And that's another thing about this game that surprised me, was that while I'm showing you a lot of footage of run and gun, of a little bit of wall running, the kind of stuff you'd expect from Call of Duty, from the early parts of the game, because I didn't want to spoil the later parts. A lot of the game is actually you in a cockpit doing dogfighting, because you're this guy who's like member of this sort of elite Top Gun squadron, but you aren't just a great pilot, you also like the most special forces of the special forces ground trooper. You are the creme de la creme, and you get thrust into this command role, so that means your character has to deal with the idea of that, you know, you have to sacrifice people to, you know, to achieve the ultimate goal, and it's something that he comes to terms with throughout the story, and it's a really great character arc. Supported amazingly well, voice acted amazingly well, great digital performances in the cutscenes as well, and it's like the guys at Call of Duty have really paid attention to where storytelling is now in first-person shooters, and they've stepped up like pretty much every shooter has this year. They have stepped it up. They've looked at Uncharted, they've looked at these great third-person narrative games and gone, you know what, we have to deliver that, and boy do they. This is another 5-star campaign. I absolutely loved it. Now, let's talk about the other elements, what we've got here of Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. As well as the campaign, we have the Zombies mode. Now, I have kind of not cared about the Zombies mode as part of Call of Duty for quite a while now. I find it pretty boring. It's fine. It's more fun, obviously, in co-op, but it's definitely not as an exciting experience as the campaign was. It's very silly. It has lots of like overly complicated mechanics to do with purchasing weapons and leveling up, and you know, environmental based sort of specialist maneuvers and things like that, and it just doesn't grab me. And the setting this time is kind of 80s sort of set zombies thing with, you know, David Hasselhoff as the DJ and other sort of voice actors you're going to recognise. It's all so damn gimmicky. I just don't feel like, you know, Infinity Ward, and I'm pretty sure this wasn't developed by them. I just don't think they care about this, and it's only there because it's kind of expected at this point. And other things that are expected at this point in the Call of Duty is, of course, the multiplayer. One of the reasons, back in the day, many people buy Call of Duty, though obviously, like I mentioned at the very top of this review, maybe not anymore. It's fine. It's a lot like the multiplayer in Black Ops 3. It's not that much like Advanced Warfare's multiplayer, and I actually preferred Advanced Warfare's multiplayer to this. I think they got the mobility and the traversal down much, much, much better in that than this. This feels like it's just sort of, they looked at last year's and went, yeah, alright, we'll put that in again. Can't be bothered. It's definitely not where the heart and soul of this game is. That's the campaign, that's the passion, that's the innovation. This multiplayer, you know, we've got some voice acting in there, we've got some like narrative hooks to the single player, but it just feels so rote at this point. Time to Death has never felt worse for me, personally, than in this. I had a couple of good runs, but the customization, there's sort of trading, and there's crafting, there's loot boxes. Everything is loot boxes and cards now. It's got the sort of the pick 10 system where you have 10 points to customize your character with, and that's fine, but it's all things we've seen before. The maps aren't exciting, the loadouts aren't particularly interesting, the gameplay is okay, but I'm not a big fan of how it feels. It's certainly, when you compare it to Titanfall 2's multiplayer, I mean, it's night and day. Titanfall 2's multiplayer gets the movement, the gunplay, just perfect. And Call of Duty just feels so lacking in innovation compared to it. I mean, that's sort of where the single player falls down for me. While it's, you know, talking about innovation, while it has the best narrative design, it you know, and the best story with the best characters, it doesn't have much innovation in gameplay, and that certainly hurts it. Now, some people have done completely separate reviews for Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered. I'm not doing that, because it's not its own game. It's only available as part of the special editions of Infinite Warfare, and therefore, to me, it's more like a pack-in, a freebie, you know, not much better than a remote control car like Call of Duty has done in the past. But it's another reason why people are picking this up, and it might be the main reason why people are picking this up. And guess what? It's the Modern Warfare, or the Call of Duty 4 you remember. It's got, you know, it's strange. It's travelling back in time 9 years. Like I mentioned as well, would have been good if they'd waited 10, because that would have been a cool anniversary point next year, but they didn't. But hey, it's travelling back in time. It shows its age, because they've not changed the gameplay systems. Yes, the graphics look a bit better, but they certainly don't look as good as Infinite Warfare's graphics, or Titanfall 2, or Battlefield, you know, 1, or any of those, or Doom, or anything. But it looks fine, it looks better. and it's kind of like, oh look, it's Soap, and you know, these guys again, McTavish, and people you remember from playing, you know, 9 years ago. And that was when I was playing, you know, first-person shooters religiously, especially Modern Warfare. It was probably the best I ever got at first-person shooters. It was a time when I was playing semi-competitively in clans, and you know, that multiplayer is something I hammered hard, and we'll talk about that shortly. But the single player is fine. It's weird. It's like one of the things I noticed immediately was the feedback from gunplay, the feedback of engaging the enemy and killing someone is decidedly lacking compared to what it's like now. Encounters feel more spread out, less immediate. Guns feel slower to reload. Everything feels a bit slower. And it's a bit strange going back, because obviously the shooter genre has evolved hugely in 9 years. You know, things are really different now. So things do feel a little bit lacking. But as a curiosity, it's fine. Now, multiplayer. Wow, that was like putting on an old shoe. It felt so strange. It's like I had sense memories of 9 years ago, of almost a decade ago in my life. Playing on the crash map, and just wow, I just remembered all the sightlines. I remembered it all started coming back to me. I remembered the map's layout without really thinking about it. I just remembered all those, playing around with those loadouts for hours, getting the best build for my character, thinking about strategies of how to like work as a team and all that through those maps. It was freaky, frankly, and you know, it's still great, but it's still Call of Duty, which means at the end of the first game I played, in Modern Warfare Remastered's multiplayer, there was a guy screaming expletives down the mic at the other people, swearing at them about being campers, just giving it to them, you know, the C word, the F word, the N word, you know, everything you remember hating about Modern Warfare and wishing would die and stop in multiplayer games. And the reason why you mute everyone, you don't play with strangers anymore, it's because of games like Call of Duty. Now, to put it into perspective, 10 years ago, I was in my early 20s, right? I was a very different person. I could spend a lot of time getting to know these maps and playing these games, you know, for hours and hours and hours. And I'm not that guy anymore, and I'm not as tolerant of that kind of language and attitude anymore. So it just turns you off. Now, if you're a teen, and this is your first time going to Modern Warfare, that's not going to work either. You know, if you're 19 or whatever, because it looks old, it plays old, you're not going to have an interest. The only person that's going to be interested in this is somebody with nostalgia. That's where they would get sales from this if they sold it by itself, and I'm sure that's going to happen. And I just can't fathom why you'd really choose to go back and play that. But then again, I can't really see why you'd play Infinite Warfare's multiplayer. It's awful. It's just nowhere near as good as what else is out right now. And there are some amazing multiplayer games out there right now. If you want to play a massive in-scope multiplayer game, you're playing Battlefield. If you want to play a tight, controlled, skill-based multiplayer game, you're playing Titanfall 2. You're not playing the multiplayer in Infinite Warfare. And it's a shame, because Infinity Ward has crafted a fantastic single-player campaign. It's the best single-player campaign Call of Duty has possibly ever had. It's creative, it's engaging, and you care about the people in it. More than I've ever cared. Definitely not in Black Ops. I did like Advanced Warfare's campaign, but it's better than that. It's better than everything going back, maybe all the way back to the first Modern Warfare. But you know, you're playing that now, and that feels dated. This is a fantastic modern campaign, but it doesn't elevate the package, and it's a real shame that the rest of this game, the rest of Infinite Warfare, Modern Warfare Remastered, the multiplayer, you name it, the zombies mode, it all feels so rote and boring, and because of that, I can't give Call of Duty Infinite Warfare more than 3 stars.
BXB. It's in the game.